Hello, Dave Moore here with PITC, and today we're going to be going over the testing procedure for a double check valve assembly. The double check valve assembly that we're going to be testing today is an N-style FEBCO 870V. The first thing we do when we come to test the device is we flush and clear our test cocks of any debris or sediment. Once I've flushed my test cocks, the first test we do on a DCVA is checking our check number 1 in forward, or our pressure differential across our check number 1. We must maintain above 1 psi a constant pressure for 2 minutes during this test. We're going to start this test by first pressurizing our gauge and bleeding it. Once we've pressurized and bled our gauge, we're going to shut that off, and we're going to relieve downstream pressure by opening test cock number 3. Again, for this test, we must hold a constant pressure above 1 psi for 2 minutes. Need to just isolate our device quickly here. Again, above 1 for 2 minutes. As long as that stayed constant, we would record that as a pass and move on to the next part of our test. We're going to shut our test cocks. We're going to take our high hose and move it from test cock number 2 to test cock number 3. The next part of our test on our DCVA is checking check number 2 in forward, or that pressure differential across check valve number 2. Pressurize our device. We're going to pressurize and bleed our gauge. Once we've pressurized and bled our gauge, we're going to isolate our device. And we're going to relieve downstream pressure by opening test cock number 4 and establishing that pressure differential across check number 2. Again, check number 2, we must hold above 1 psi constant for 2 minutes. If we hold above 1 for 2 minutes, that's recorded as a pass, and we move on to the next part of this test. For the next part of this test, our hose all remains the same, and now we check our check 1 in reverse pressure by opening up test cock number 2. And again, we must hold a constant pressure here for 2 minutes. If we hold a constant pressure here for 2 minutes, we record that as a pass and we move on to the next part of our test. We'll shut and isolate our test cocks. We'll remove our high hose from test cock number 3 and place it onto test cock number 4. The last part of our test for a DCVA is checking our check number 2 in reverse pressure. We're first going to pressurize our device. We're then going to pressurize and bleed our gauge. Once we've bled our gauge, we're going to relieve upstream pressure by opening test cock number 3. First, we're going to isolate our device. Now, right now we have line pressure of around 60 psi on the downstream side of check 2, so we're just going to relieve this to a readable level. Again, we must maintain on this test a constant pressure for 2 minutes. So I'll observe my gauge. As long as my gauge holds constant for 2 minutes, this would be recorded as a pass. We'll finish our test paperwork and put the device back into service.